Hey guys, Cameron here again for the next episode of Industry Insights. Here today with Agi and Izzy from Worley. Here to give you a bit more insight into the consulting industry. First of all, how are you guys going?
Great.
Going good. It's good to hear. So, you guys are fairly recent graduates. You've been kind of working at Worley for going on 8 months now. How are you finding the job?
Um,
Um,
Good.
Go
Yeah,
Aggie.
good. Mm,
It's pretty good. I started last November.
mm,
So I did 3 months of an internship, and
mm.
then they kept me on after that.
Oh, nice.
So that was really interesting.
Cool.
Learned a lot in those first 3 months.
Mm,
And then I guess I've just been learning a lot, like exponentially since
yeah,
then.
it's always like that in that
Um,
first year.
Yeah, yeah. So
Definitely.
things are sort of starting to slow down a bit for me now,
Mm,
especially with COVID. But yeah, really
yeah.
interesting. Learning a lot
Oh,
from a lot
beauty.
of different areas
Okay,
with lots of
cool.
different clients.
So, for anyone who's listening at home and maybe hasn't heard of Worley before or isn't too familiar with what they do, can you guys give us a bit of background about Worley as a company?
All right. Well, Worley is a global consulting company.
Mm,
After the acquisition with Jacobs, it rebranded as Worley as it's known now.
mm,
We deal with a ton of big clients, a lot that you probably know of, like ExxonMobil, Viva
mm,
Energy, things like that. Yeah, and we work on delivering various projects and providing engineering expertise, procurement,
mm,
construction help through various market sectors such as like chemical, power,
mm.
minerals, mining,
Yeah.
things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we work closely with our customers. We have some sites in Melbourne as well, on the Altona side or Geelong with Viva.
Mm.
Yeah, and we just help with that and like, yeah,
Okay, cool. So,
the
what would you
framework.
say is maybe like the main priority of the business? Because obviously, like you just said, they cover a lot of different business areas. What would you say is maybe the priority for the company?
Ooh. Um,
Oh,
I mean, it depends on the state you're in and the
Mm,
area, the region you're in. So it's a global company. So there's 60,000 people globally.
mm.
I think most of them are in America, but it's an Australian company.
Okay.
So Melbourne specifically and like our side, that's mainly oil and gas. But
Okay.
then Western Australia would be mining and other places. Like it depends on what the biggest thing is in that region.
Okay, very cool. So, what would you say has kind of made Worley so successful? Is it maybe just that diversity in the skills or the jobs that they offer, or is it maybe a particular kind of skill that they offer that has made them so successful?
I think it's a bit of
um,
both.
yeah, I think Wally does a really good job on staying ahead of the trends.
Mm,
Like we're really looking into diversifying our portfolio into like new
definitely.
energy and such,
Mm.
especially now. And Wally has kind of always sort of dabbled into that even before COVID and all of this sort of combusted.
Okay, so
I was able
Yeah.
yeah.
I was able to help on a few sort of decarbonization projects, even before, like just before COVID hit.
Mm,
So they were just starting to get into it. The manager I had at the time was very passionate about it. So she was all over it. I mean, she was leading. She was the managing consultant of the hydrocarbons group,
yeah, yeah.
and yet her main passion was decarbonisation. So she ended up speaking to various companies and trying to help them through the new energy
Okay.
decarbonisation.
That's a bit of a
Um,
strange combination for someone running the hydrocarbons group.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, now she's been promoted to like a global position within
Mm.
sustainability. So do what you love. I think that's the moral of
It
the story.
definitely does help for that upwards career path if you've got
Yeah,
multiple interests and multiple skill sets across different areas.
yeah.
Definitely does help there. So, that's a
Mm.
bit about background about Woolly themselves. Maybe how do you guys actually fit into the picture? Because you're both graduate process engineers. Are you working in the same team or have you got different job titles?
Yeah, we work in the same team. We're both in
Okay.
energy and chemicals. Aggie started out in one of Worley's subsidiary companies at Vision,
Hmm.
which sort of did the more initial concept and proposal sort of work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and then she got transferred to Worley, where I sort of started work from.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I started, I did more technical works, and I'm
Yeah.
still doing a bit more technical work than I guess the more project management side of things. So I deal with a lot of like calculation, sizing,
Yeah.
process line checks, and like PNIDs, PFDs, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, and
Where I
then
haven't done any of that.
okay, so
I
you're more
I
the
haven't.
project management side of things then.
Yes, I've done much more project management work. I
Okay.
haven't been on too many projects yet, but I'm like keen to get into that.
Yeah.
Isabel's told me all about how difficult calculations can be, and I want
It's
to.
so tough.
I want to help her with all of that, and I want to try and work with her because, like, her and I worked really closely in uni. So,
Yeah.
Want to continue that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's good that you're in the same team then. It helps a lot with that.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a bit more about this? Was it the energy and chemicals team? Could you maybe give us a bit more background? Like, I know a lot of these big multinational consulting firms, they tend to have different business lines or different service lines. So, obviously, you're working in the energy and chemical as opposed to maybe the environmental or the construction or land planning service lines. So, what exactly is involved in the the energy and chemicals line that you're working in?
I guess it depends more so on like what you do. So like energy and chemicals, you're dealing with a lot of like so there's three lines as far as I understand. So there's the energy and chemicals, there's the mining minerals and metals line, and then there's like the process safety and risk section as
Okay.
well. So yeah, so as you know, mining minerals and metals, that's dealing with more like those sort of
yeah.
those sort of business lines. So it's like energy and chemicals is quite a broad term. So you deal with a lot of things.
Okay. So you said you've done some work previously for ExxonMobil on their Altona refinery site and some other works for Viva Energy at their Geelong refinery. What kind of projects does your energy and chemicals team handle, either on those sites or in other projects?
So generally with those clients, we deal with a lot of like because they have a brownfield site, we deal with like optimizing or enhancing their pre-existing assets and sort of dealing with like if they want a new, I don't know, a scrubber put in. We sort of design and sort of ensure that the PNID is up to date and sort of edited so that we can sort of put those equipments in.
Okay, very cool. So no two projects are the same then. Obviously, it could be anything that these clients are coming to you with, and you've got to assess the problem, see what needs to happen, and then make any changes, procure any of the new instruments, items, or equipment, and then take them all through the installation and commissioning kind of process then.
Yeah.
So you
it really depends on what the client wants.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it must be great to kind of keep on track of on top of all those different kind of learnings and skill sets, and it does develop a great kind of technical engineering sense when you are exposed to all of that. So as of right now, are you guys working on any projects that the people listening might have heard of or might be familiar with?
With Lockhart Energy, there's projects with, I guess, Exxon. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Melbourne doesn't deal too much with Rio Tinto, but I know Perth office definitely does because that's like mining is their thing. What else? There are so many.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep track of them a lot. Yeah, of course, you mentioned the Viva Energy one. So what are you guys actually handling down at the Geelong refinery, or can't you tell us?
I haven't worked at the Geelong refinery.
Yeah, I haven't worked personally with Viva Energy, but I know a few other people have sort of worked there, and there's a lot of different projects that goes on within the refinery and with the same client even. So it really all depends. Like, I'm not too sure.
And so how are you guys finding that consulting kind of role? Would you think you'd prefer that as opposed to maybe a traditional production engineering role where you're actually working on site, managing the same process and trying to just keep on top of all the things in a single site? Which do you think is kind of best suited for your skill sets?
Personally, for me, I think consulting is great. I like that there's so many different things you can do on any given day. No 2 days are going to be the same. Because if you start on one project, you solidly work through it for X amount of weeks. And then once that's done, you'll be put onto a project that's completely different, where even if it's the same client, they want to continue with the project. They add more scope. They, so it's really interesting. You get to work, even if it's technical, you're always doing something different.
Yeah.
And then on the project manager side, you can talk to people and figure out what they want, why they want more hours. But no, sorry, we're going to cut some hours. Like, you can sort of work together with them.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I suppose it'll always be an interesting role because you're always jumping between so many different projects. It's very difficult to get bored at any given point, and you're always being exposed to new things. Keeping that in mind, though, do you think maybe there's some similarities, or what would you say is it maybe one or two similarities between this consulting role and just like a traditional role as just like an on-site production engineer?
I think with both roles, you got to be really good at communication as well, because like you're dealing with a lot of different people from different backgrounds. So definitely communication. And I guess there's a huge factor of great time management skills as well. Like you got to be really on it, especially when you're juggling different projects, different deadlines for things. And I'm sure even when you're dealing with a singular project in an operations role, you still have to deal with like deadlines.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've only been working quite recently. You're still less than a year in the role. So you're just fresh out of university. Have you found stepping into that now grad position role, have you found it similar at all to work at university? I've heard a lot of people say that consulting work is very similar to almost like a group assignment at university. You're trying to keep in contact with a whole bunch of different people. You're working with different skill sets according to different timetables. Have you kind of found that to be the case?
I have. Definitely, yeah. I mean, the way that you need to deal with people is the same. And exactly what you said, how there's different skill sets and everyone at different timetables, and you sort of just need to like book into their calendar. But I mean, they also need to move things around to make sure that they make the meetings, for example.
Yeah.
So everyone, so in that way, yes. It's really, but in terms of like the actual work, it's completely different to uni.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. But
I think like the closest you get is probably final year projects.
Yeah.
Where you're actually like putting into practice all the theory that you learned. So most of uni is just like theory based, obviously. So it's very hard to understand where you can actually apply it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the hardest part going into Worley and applying what you learned, like maybe 3-4 years ago, and trying to remember all of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the more practical aspect of it is kind of hard, sort of like connecting between theory and practice.
Definitely. So do you feel like it was a big adjustment stepping up from that final year design project to actually working at Worley?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I myself, I'm doing the design project right now, and I've done a bit of work in consulting firms before, and just trying to draw some similarities between the two. It does seem like working at a company like Worley, it's just every day, month, couple projects that you have is almost like a very condensed design project. That entire year feels like it gets condensed down into a single unit here and there, and you're just exposing yourself to it over and over again, and it dramatically increases your skill set for it. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think like final years is probably the closest you get to sort of consulting work, but still there's just so much that they don't tell you at uni that you sort of learn on the job.
Definitely.
Like I remember in our final year project, like we didn't know what standards to use, and you use a lot of standards at Worley and designing different equipments and all of that, and you really gotta use them, but we didn't.
Exactly. It's almost like a new way of thinking. You're forced to kind of go to those aspects that you would normally leave like blank or just leave as assumed knowledge in a university project. You're actually going and you have to go and do all that legwork, find all their standards, find all the equations and theory for it, which is it's good. It really pushes you to be a better engineer. Keeping that in mind, what kind of skills do you think, apart from obviously the knowledge itself that you've learned in your degree, what skills do you think have been beneficial to your jobs at Worley?
so many.
Yeah.
I
Would you say it's
mean,
mainly just like the organizational component that you brought up before, or is there any kind of ones that immediately jump to mind?
whenever you enter any job, like literally, it does not matter what the job is, as long as you're open to learning, I think anyone will be happy to take you on. Like, there's no reason that any fresh engineer should be walking into a job and acting as though they understand everything already. Trust me, you don't. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much to learn on the job. So if you're open to learning, that will just make things so much better.
Definitely. I've heard so
Just
many
that you know
people.
nothing and you said.
Yeah. So many people I've talked to, like on this podcast and just in general at networking events, have always said that the first year that you enter an engineering role is always the hardest because you've got that steep learning curve where you're trying to adjust your expectations and open yourself to the new standards of doing things. And it's just such a radical shift that first year is often the hardest one you'll ever experience.
Yeah, definitely. But then it's also okay because like everyone experiences it. Like it's something that everyone goes through, and you just got to remember not to be too hard on yourself, I think.
Definitely. So how did you guys actually find that first job working at Worley? Was it just through like a job agency, or did you apply on LinkedIn, or did somebody else tell you about the role?
For me, I think I found it on the RMIT Career Hub. I was in like my second final year of uni, and I was like, heck, I need an internship. So I applied for like a heck ton. And then I think at the time period, it was like November, and I was like, oh, I guess like I'm not going to get an internship then because nothing had really come back really positively. And then Wally came back to me and was like, hey, do you want to do an internship? And I was
lovely.
like, sure. Yeah. And then I got the job after that. So that was,
always nice when
that's
that
how I did it.
And how about you, Aggie?
Yeah, so Izzy did have to start that because she told me to apply for Worley after she'd done the internship. And so I applied a few months after she finished her internship, and then I got called back to start in November to do the 3 months, and then they just kept me on. So I was at Worley for 2 months before Isabel started her graduate program. Yeah. And then I started my graduate program a few months after. So mine was based off recommendation from Isabel.
Very nice, very nice. And you actually came through the Advisian route though, didn't you? You were part of the associate company?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was the work there? Was it that much different to what you're doing now?
Honestly, so when I first got into Advisian with the internship, I was able to work on a few different projects, one with ESO, another one with Beach, a few little bits and bobs here and there, and it was just a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun and very, very interesting. So, like, always ask questions. If you don't understand, always ask questions. I had one senior engineer who would always come to me and just, like, explain to me about all of the platforms in straight. You know, he has so much knowledge, and he's like, no, my job is to just tell you everything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm listening.
Is he looking to retire soon or something, or?
Yeah. So he just gave me a lot of knowledge, and that was really interesting. So then after my internship, I stayed on with Worley. I was able to transfer to Worley, but then COVID hit, and I haven't been on any proper projects since then.
Yeah.
So I can't really comment on how different the technical work is because I haven't done any with Worley. I assume it would be similar, just more detailed design instead of feed phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you're both still starting out just as graduate engineers right now. Have you guys got any career goals in mind, or career like trajectories? Are you planning on staying at Worley for a long time, or maybe jumping around a little bit? What's your next move look like?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess like so far I'll just stay with Worley. Like I'm newly in. I can't say I know much about either the stream of like process engineering or going down the more technical route at Worley. I guess I'll just have to like see how it goes.
Okay. How about yourself, Aggie?
Yeah, probably the same thing. Before I got into this job, pretty much everyone said stay in one job for at least 2 years before you try to move on.
Okay.
So that's my intention.
No worries.
And with COVID, you don't want to be moving around too much at the moment anyway, because there might not be as
Yeah.
many opportunities. So I'm sort of just trying to learn as much as I can where I am.
No
And I'm
worries.
really enjoying it so far. So I
Yeah.
have no reason to go anywhere.
So that's maybe a little bit more short term, but how about maybe long term? Would you want to see yourself as like a line manager for maybe the chemical and energy business line, or would you kind of want to maybe jump to one of the other Worley offices somewhere else around the world?
I don't know. I think
I'm
with
definitely
everything,
open to it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just
I
one of
mean,
those
they
things
do
to keep
say
in
that
mind.
site experience is really important. So
Mm,
all graduates kind of need some experience on site because it really broadens your understanding of how processes work and how a refinery works.
definitely.
But yeah, not too sure. Open to it though.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, you're both participating in the graduate program right now. Can you maybe give people listening at home right now who would be interested in joining the Worley graduate program, what's actually involved in it?
So at the stage we're at, it's very much complete your competencies.
Okay.
So at the moment we have a whole list of
Oh, wow. Okay.
competencies.
So you've got the whole
Oh,
booklet
it's a
package and
lot.
everything. Right. Okay.
Yeah, there's everything in there. So it's a lot of it's sort of like your final year project in a way that
Hmm.
you have a whole list of things to do and it's self-driven.
Okay.
So you have a mentor that you can talk to about all these things. So your mentor will be most likely in another city and in a different discipline.
Okay. That's a bit of a
Yeah,
strange. So normally your mentor is someone sitting like 2 rows down from you or something.
yeah, well, that's what you think. So
Hmm.
I think you can sort of have any mentor for any reason. So
Hmm.
you're given a mentor from the company who's not in the same location or the same discipline, and they
Hmm.
sort of help with like general career progression and understanding the different competencies and how you
Hmm.
can finish them.
Okay.
So there's one section like just for project management, and
Hmm.
since I've been doing a fair bit of work with that, I'm going to the project manager that I've been working with, and I asked him to be my mentor just for that section.
Yeah.
So you can always sort of talk to people and get them to mentor you, regardless of what it's for.
Okay.
So I think that's really good, and
Yeah.
everyone's so nice.
Yeah. So how many of these
Yeah.
competency things are there?
50 plus, I
50
think.
plus.
I
Okay.
vaguely counted it.
So how
And
long?
so
Oh, sorry. After
yeah.
you, Izzy.
Yeah, so I think the general period for this graduate program is around 2 years.
Hmm.
You can extend it, it's up to you. Like this program is entirely sort of self-driven.
Really?
You can
Okay.
you can be in the program as long as you want. You can be a year to 3 years. Like it really doesn't matter. The general time frame is around 2 years.
Okay.
But once you graduate from this graduate program, you don't necessarily go up a level to engineer ones, which is the next step.
Okay.
You have to make sure that your, I guess, line manager approves that you have the certain technical competencies to actually progress up to the next stage.
Okay.
So that's dependent on what you learn and what you do with the different
So
projects you work on.
engineer one is just like your base level engineer after you
Yep.
graduate. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. And is there anything else involved in the grad program? So you've said it's already 2 years plus, depends how long you want to go for. Do you do any
Yep.
rotations at all? A lot of grad programs, you either rotate to a different office somewhere in the company or a different service line to try and get a better understanding of the business. Is there something similar at Worley or?
From what I've heard, there's nothing. It's not like you have to stay for 3 months in this location and then move to this other business line or whatever. It's very, especially with everything now, they're making sure that everything's more global. So if there's a project in the Netherlands that needs help and you're available, you can probably help them with their projects. You just have to stay awake at that time. So
Yeah.
there aren't specific rotations. It's very, very self-driven. So if you want to go to another country, you need to tell someone, you need to push for it. Because no one's going, like, no one's just going to help you for no reason. It's sort of like half being an employee and a graduate at the same time. So they're helping you in a lot of different ways, but you need to push it.
Okay.
But,
definitely makes sense. I mean, is that kind of been the same experience for you? Because I mean, obviously you're working in a more technical kind of role. Is it very easy for you to kind of jump in and jump out of projects based on what you kind of want to work on?
You kind of assign the projects that you're given, but if you know the right people to talk to, you can sort of ask them for more work in a different area. So like right now that my project work has kind of died down a little bit more, I was talking to a woman in the digital side of the business, and she's been giving me more work with regards to that. And that's a bit more on the project management side of things. Okay. So it kind of depends on who you talk to. Most people are just generally happy to have you help them out and sort of let you experience a different part of the business.
Oh, I suppose less work for them is always a good thing.
Exactly.
So how would someone wanting to get involved in the Worley grad program or even the internship program that you did, Izzy, how does somebody apply?
I guess just go online, like keep an eye out on like the career hubs or like Seek and things like that. Just apply. I think the graduate program applications closed at April, May-ish already, but for next year. But I think the internships open up end of the year, middle of the year sometimes. So
okay, cool. And then, so what would you have as maybe some advice for people trying to follow the same path that you guys have and find that internship or find that grad program at Worley? What would you say to them?
Just be open-minded. Don't go in thinking that you know everything. Just learn as much as you can. Have the attitude, because if you don't have the attitude, no one will want to work with you. It doesn't matter what you get into. That's my advice.
Nice. Anything from you, Izzy, on that point?
I guess just make sure you've got really good communication skills. Time management is a huge thing with consulting, so brush up on that. I guess just be open to opportunities. Take anything that comes your way, because you might be surprised by how much you enjoy it.
Definitely. Well, it's been great chatting to you guys and hearing all about your experiences at Worley. Hopefully that everyone listening at home has gotten a much better understanding now of how Worley works as a company and what they can kind of expect through a career in consulting, if that's the path that they want to take. Guys listening at home, hope you guys have enjoyed this. As always, remember to like the video, share it around to your friends. If you've got any questions for any upcoming guests we've got, make sure to comment them down below and we'll work them into upcoming episodes. But apart from that, we'll see you guys next week and have a good one.